Hey, what's up everyone? Chris Nelson here, bringing you another episode of Foreclosure Friday. But this week's episode is a little bit different than most of the previous because we're not looking at a house today. As a matter of fact, today I'm giving you my 5 tips to help you if you are in the market to buy a foreclosed property. So let's dig into it. When you buy a foreclosed property, there is no seller's disclosure. A seller's disclosure is a form that's given to a seller and it asks them specific questions about the property. And a lot of these questions are important questions to you. Some of the questions may relate to how old is the roof? Has the roof ever leaked? How old is the heater? When was the last time the heater was serviced? Are you aware of any legal issues that may impact the property conveying? These are all serious questions which have value to you, the buyer. But when you're buying a foreclosed property, this document does not exist. So you want to make sure that you're doing as much due diligence as you possibly can. I would suggest talking to the neighbors, calling the township to see if there are any outstanding violations from maybe repairs that were done without permits or anything to that extent, because you want to do your due diligence and get as much background information on the property as you can to help you make a savvy decision. The fees are usually different when you are buying a foreclosed property. It's important to understand what some of those fees may be. Now, generally when you buy a traditional property, transfer tax is split between buyer and seller here in the state of Pennsylvania. So some counties may have 2% transfer tax, some have 4%. There's a different variance in transfer tax, but again, whatever that number is in traditional real estate is usually split between buyer and seller. So for example, if there's 2% transfer tax, the buyer pays 1% and the seller would pay 1%. However, that doesn't always apply when you're buying a foreclosed property. As a matter of fact, some sellers for foreclosed properties such as Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or HUD do not pay any transfer tax. So it's important to know this up front because ultimately that impacts your closing cost. There are other things like title insurance. Some sellers for foreclosed properties will actually pay for your owner's policy if you decide to use the seller's chosen title company. Other things such as tax certifications, and if there's a use and occupancy that is applicable for the sale, you want to know if you're responsible to obtain those certifications and that potential UNO, and if you are also responsible for the cost. So it's important to know and understand that the cost affiliated with buying a foreclosed property could greatly vary from buying a traditional property. As is. You want to go into this sale knowing that the property is as is. Now, of course, the seller is aware of a majority of the things that you're going to point out because they've also done their due diligence. They may not have done a full inspection, but they spent some time with the property and had their agent go back to them and tell them things that a buyer may identify as an issue. For example, broken windows or carpet that may need to be replaced, broken kitchen cabinets. So when you go to the property and you see these defects, please be aware that the seller generally is aware of these issues and has, in their mindset, priced the property accordingly, knowing that some of these defects exist. However, if you do your inspection and you come to find that there are some major elements that the seller may not be aware of, for example, structural issues, a heater that may not work, a hot water heater that may not work, the roof may now be leaking and it was not when they first listed the property. These are things that you might be able to use, and I emphasize might be able to use as leverage. So when you do your inspection, although the property is as is, don't be afraid to go back with some minor requests. However, go into the transaction knowing that the sale is as is, and a majority of the time, the seller is not going to do repairs. Financing options that generally apply for traditional real estate may apply for foreclosed and REO inventory as well. However, you want to go into the situation having as many options as possible. Have a good loan officer who can explain to you some of the different programs that are out there that may be beneficial to you if you are buying a property that is A, distressed, and B, dealing with a situation where the seller is telling you that the sale is as is. So as you become aware of potential repairs, you're going to want some type of financing option that will allow you to get through the transaction. For example, there is a loan out there that is called an FHA 203K loan. Now this loan is very popular for distressed properties, and I see it quite often. Generally what it is a loan that allows you to purchase the property as well as provide you with the financial means to rehab the property, all within one loan. But again, you want to have this information up front so that you can be better prepared and have more options to help get that property to closing. So my last tip, and this is actually my favorite tip, is to find a realtor who has experience with REO or foreclosed properties. You may not want to work directly with the listing agent, which is totally fine, but find someone who has some sort of history and or experience with selling REO and foreclosed properties, because that makes a huge difference. You really need someone who can help you identify upfront some of the issues that may come up on a home inspection, some of the issues that may pose issues with financing, and someone who can really help you understand the value. A lot of times what I see when buyers are buying foreclosed properties is there's a disconnect when it comes to the numbers. And I'm going to give you an example. Let's just say you're buying a townhouse in a development where the average sale price in that development is $300,000. And you find a property in that development that is a foreclosed or REO property, and it's listed for $275,000 or $25,000 below fair market value. Generally, in this situation, the seller is aware that they're not going to get the average sale price in that development and has subsequently marketed the property at a lower price point to help you, the buyer, offset the expense. So they may know that this house needs paint, it needs carpet, you're going to need to replace some windows and maybe some other cosmetic repairs to bring the property up to speed. Now what I see on my end is the buyer may offer $275,000, which is the seller's asking price, and then start to chisel away once they go under contract at that accepted price for repairs such as paint, carpet, and so forth. These are things that you should be aware of up front because you are walking through the property and you see these things before making your offer. So again, having a good realtor who has experience and can show you comparables on what the property would be worth once you made those repairs is definitely the most valuable thing that you can do when you're buying a foreclosed or an REO property. Now, if there's anything that I can do or my team can do to help you, please feel free to reach out. We do specialize in REO and foreclosed property. We also specialize in short sales. So feel free to reach out. You can call us directly or go right on our website. There's plenty of information there, including some of our REO inventory. So with that being said, thank you for taking the time to watch this week's episode of Foreclosure Friday. And I hope to see you not next week, but the following week for the next episode of Foreclosure Friday. And with that being said, take care.